It's been approximately 160 years since the Emancipation Proclamation that allegedly freed slaves in America, the United States. In those 160 years, we had many Negro politicians who ascended to the offices of governor, senator, mayor, judge, Supreme Court judge, and because of the prevailing philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois, many of these Negroes were satisfied with just getting in close proximity to the white man, getting some sort of equality, or being in the same vicinity as the white man. They never say we should get reparations for the previous 400, 300 years of slavery that our ancestors went through, or the current situation with the so-called Jim Crow. We should get some type of recompense for that. Also, all of the cities that have been destroyed, so-called Black Wall Streets, Red Summers, the mass murders of the Negroes. It's 2023, and the Negro politicians have not brought this issue to the government because they were just satisfied being next to the white man, integrating the quest for the golden fleece, according to W.E.B. Du Bois. The talented 10 Negroes, they were going to be the ones to integrate and create this utopia. It never crossed their minds that maybe we should be recompensed, compensated for our atrocities, tragedies. These niggas, these Negroes have failed us. Jesse Jackson just announced his retirement. He had 60 plus years over the Negro. He oversaw the destruction of the black communities in Chicago, the Robert Taylor homes, Cabrini Green, communities that Dr. King forced Daley Sr., Richard M. Daley to build, or Richard J. Daley. It was Dr. King with his Operation Breadbasket that brought these communities into existence. And Jesse Jackson oversaw the destruction of those communities. He oversaw 50 million black women, or 50 black women committing 50 million abortions. Jesse Jackson oversaw the crime bills, Joe Biden's crime bills, mass incarceration of the black man. Jesse Jackson oversaw the black man of America being thrown out of his own household, thrown out of his own community. Jesse Jackson guaranteed this reality. And this is why he was allowed to exist and live to be 80 years old. He's a failed Negro leader, just like Farrakhan. But the topic of this article is, the topic of this discussion is, how can we get reparations? The only so-called non-violent way that I see the Negro achieving reparations is through the black carcass, because the black carcass has great power in the United States Senate. I mean, the United States Congress, because they're part of the Senate and the representatives. Because can no law get passed by the so-called Democrats, or even the Republicans for that matter, without the black carcass? The black carcass can withhold their vote or threaten to vote against the Democrats if they don't get their demands met. But the black carcass never had a demand for reparations. So the only way I see non-violently to get these reparations is to either infiltrate the black carcass and convert the black carcass to the ideals of reparations, or replace the black carcass by putting members into the government, into the Senate, into the House of Representatives, to go against the black carcass members such as Danny Davis, Sheila Jackson Lee. Replace these people with people who want and believe in these ideas of reparations, because once you get into Congress, you have a vote on these laws. On every single law, you have to make a vote. And for too long, the black carcass has been a rubber stamp for the Democrats with nothing in return. They're allegedly the so-called representatives of the black community, but all they've been doing was representing the agenda of so-called Democrats, which is to exterminate the masses of the black people, to keep the Negroes in poverty, to keep the Negroes separated, to weaken the economic strength of the Negro, to imprison the Negro, to increase the death rate and decrease the birth rate of the Negro, the incarceration rate. This is what the black carcass has been supporting. So I think the black carcass must be destroyed. But if you could somehow convince the black carcass to accept the agenda of reparations and get them to threaten their vote, withhold their vote in order to get these so-called reparations, it might happen. Because we have black carcass members in the Senate and the House of Representatives. If only one black carcass member in the Senate, because all of them are Democrats, because the Senate is basically 49 to 50, and Kamala Harris has the tie vote. You get a couple of those Negro carcass members, get these carcass members, black carcass members in the Senate to threaten, because this one lady in Georgia, a black representative in Georgia, just flipped to the GOP, Republican Party. Get more of these Negroes to flip. Convince these Negroes, convert these Negroes, and by any means necessary, to believe and accept and embrace the idea of reparations. And also, we must reject the Mexicans, because the Mexicans are an existential threat to the black reality. They're like locusts. They're like roaches. They're coming for resources. First you see one or two, then you see a million. They multiply and they eat. And they're very selfish, greedy, niggardly people. They only care about their own people, their own self. They don't sacrifice for anybody, don't advocate for anybody but their own self. They're very greedy, they're very selfish. They're very ungrateful people. That's why they got kicked out of Mexico, because nobody want them. You could tolerate them in the beginning because they get sycophants, they get flatter. But once they get power, they change up and they become a worse racist than the average Caucasian. So Negroes must reject the Mexicans. Negroes must reject, who else? Negroes must reject the Africans also, because they're the same way. They only come in, play the role, get their power, then they change up and become brand new. They're very ungrateful people. That's why their countries are failures, because they're failures. They're coming for resources, and the easiest person they could get resources from is the Negroes. And they're only agents of the white man, because the white man used these Mexicans to infiltrate, use these Africans to infiltrate and get the strongholds. And once they get strongholds, they come in and kick the African, kick the Mexican out, and take over from here. They're just tools. They're just wedges. They're just pawns in a very sophisticated, massive chess game. And the Negroes don't even know there's a war being waged, using Mexicans and Africans to infiltrate, undermine, sabotage the black community. But that's the only way I see non-violently that the Negro can get these so-called reparations. It's through the power apparatus that already exists for the last 170 years. the black carcass, the so-called Negro who failed and derelicted their duty to represent the interest of the Negro. You're going to eventually have to represent the interest of the Negro. You're going to have to do that. And that's the only way, the only non-violent way that I see the reparations happening is through the black carcass.